All right, folks, welcome back to the TNT show. We have our last college football playoff rankings episode, which honestly it pretty much turned into a series since they had this was the fourth one, I think.
Yeah,
No, fifth
fifth
one,
week.
because the
This is
last
the
one
fifth
was
week.
last week was episode 4. So I'm gonna make something for that, a folder for it, like
Yeah,
a series for it. That way, there's all the videos just sitting right there in one.
right.
But before I get too far into rambling and whatnot, we're just gonna go ahead and jump into the bracket for the final bracket for basically the upcoming college football playoff.
Yeah, I think the biggest news is Alabama not making it. That's been a huge talk about is strength of schedules and how teams are making their schedule, which to a certain extent, you can't help who you play.
That's true. I
But
mean,
that's going to force these teams to play but that's going to force these teams to play better competition. But my argument is, if that's the case, if that was your argument going in, how is Notre Dame sitting at 7? Because they didn't play anybody; they only play Texas A&M.
that's
If
true.
that's what your argument is being, which that's it's hard to not put them in there because yes, they have one loss and that's it. But if you go look at who they played, it's nobody. Their loss came to Northern Illinois.
That's true. I
But
mean,
it was the second game of the year,
yeah, yeah,
which, this time on this day and age in football, you can afford to lose. At least from what we've seen twice, depending on what conference you're in and where you fall. But obviously, starting off, Clemson beat SMU, so Clemson got that spot. They are in a very tough bracket playing Texas right off the bat for sure.
yeah.
That's going to be a tough spot. It's like I said earlier. Texas is either really good or really bad. They just couldn't beat Georgia either time. They got held to below 2 scores both times, and Georgia just kind of overwhelmed them. They got beat by a backup quarterback too.
Yeah. Before I give my say on that, just to touch on Alabama really quick.
I'm
For
glad they
every
did. I'm glad they didn't make it.
for everybody for everybody that's going crazy about them not making it, and I'm one of the biggest Alabama fans, and anybody can attest to
Yeah,
that fact. They did not deserve to be there. I
yeah.
get it; they're 9-3, and SMU
It's
is
the
a
losses.
it's it's really the Oklahoma loss. You got blown out by Oklahoma, an
On the
unranked
road too.
team that was sitting at 500. They've been struggling all season, and Bama goes in there and lays a complete egg. So with that
It's
loss
that,
sitting on their
yeah.
schedule, if they don't have that loss, they probably get in because head to head, Alabama and SMU both at 11-2. Alabama's going to win based
I
off.
I think Alabama would have went if it would have been you replace Oklahoma with Texas. If Texas would have beat them, I think Alabama would still be in here.
No.
I think so, just because I think it's the loss to Oklahoma because of their rank or their wins losses, however you want to put it. Because I think if you replace that loss with Texas, I think Alabama would be a little bit higher in the rankings, so they probably would have fell probably where they probably would. So they were at 10, right? Or were they
11.
at 11?
Yeah, they were pretty much sitting in that final spot, but they got bumped out because
So I think if they would have got beat by Texas, they might have been a little bit of a higher seed.
and
So they
not
probably wouldn't have fell out. That's my argument.
that makes sense. That
You
makes a lot of
got beat
sense.
by a well, they finished the season 6-6,
6-6, yeah.
so I think that's what hurt you the most is getting beat by them instead of if you would have got beat by an 11-1 Texas team, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal. But I mean, that's still 3 losses. That's tough,
You just
especially being on the outside looking in. My biggest argument was why put them in there if they never had a chance. I mean, obviously, Clemson beat SMU. So that's why Clemson's even in here.
Yep.
But my thought process is, or was, or however you want to put it, is why would you have put them in there if they easily could have been taken out? That doesn't make any sense. And I see the argument with Alabama fans. A lot of people are saying, they don't like. Cam Newton said it. I don't know if you've seen his take. So he came out and said that nobody wants to see SMU play. Nobody wants to see Boise play. Notre Dame. They don't play anybody. And I get that argument, but hey, I'll give SMU credit. This is their first year off of they've been in the death penalty for years. And for them to come in the SEC, yes, they didn't beat Clemson. They had a chance. They rallied back. Couldn't. Clemson was just a little bit too much. But for them to come in the ACC their first year and to make the college football playoffs, hey, hats off to you. The only team we both can agree that we have a problem with, I'm not trying to take anything away from them, or if you are a fan of Notre Dame, it's them not being in a conference and playing teams like Wake Forest or just, the bottom of the barrel teams. So obviously they're gonna get in here every year because they don't play anybody.
Yeah, but see the downside for them not being in the conference is
they can't. They
can never be a top 4, which that isn't a terrible thing. It's just I don't know.
But it depends on how you look at it. So you can look at it that way, but look at it from this perspective. Carson Beck got hurt, so luckily for them, they beat Texas. So now they get that first round bye. They don't have to play for a month almost.
Exactly,
if not longer than that.
Now I think, and look, I'm sorry if you're a Notre Dame fan, y'all are frauds. I'm sorry, y'all. This is Notre Dame does this like
every year, every
so often. When y'all make it to the playoffs, y'all have a light schedule. Yep. Y'all's ranked teams, I think they had 4 ranked wins. 3 of those were not really good teams: Louisville, Army, Navy.
Texas A&M is about the only one.
Texas A&M was the best ranked win that they had. That was at the beginning of the season.
That was the first game, very first one. And
they won by like 10.
Marcel Reed didn't even play. Marcel Reed wasn't even part of their offense.
Exactly.
So it might be a different game. But before I know we're rambling.
Miami. Got to touch on Miami.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a second. Okay. I think the biggest thing that they should have done was either way. We're just going to touch on the SEC here for a second. I think what they should have done, because Georgia and Texas were going no matter what. Whoever lost, they were both going. I think what should have happened and what they should integrate is, so Texas was number 1 in the SEC. So they automatically go. I think what should have happened is Georgia should have played Alabama for a spot in here.
People are going to call you crazy for saying that.
I understand that, and that's fine. You can call me crazy, but I think, but it made no difference.
Somebody still has
that SEC championship game meant nothing.
You have to earn that conference championship, though.
And that's fine. Well, either way, they both made the bracket, so they both were sitting there. So it would have gave Georgia and Alabama, because Texas, honestly, win, lose made no difference to them. They still made it.
Well, I mean, think about it like this. There's only one 3-loss team in this entire bracket. And you know who it is? Clemson.
Right. It's
because they won their conference.
I know.
With 3 losses.
I know. But what I'm saying is the controversy without. So that's what I'm saying. That the ACC championship game meant something that's why Clemson. I think that's why Clemson won.
Yeah, Clemson was actually playing to get into the playoff.
Exactly. The Georgia and Texas, they weren't really playing for anything. You might make the argument if Texas beat Georgia that Georgia might not have made it.
They were. Well, that's another conversation, which I'm gonna hit that real quick. Georgia and Texas were basically playing for that first round bye.
Yeah,
that's what that game was about. That was the intensity of it, and you could tell.
Yeah.
Now, I think if Georgia loses that game, then yes, they still get in, but Georgia would have been the one to push Alabama out of the bracket because.
So you think no matter what that
Alabama wasn't going to make it. The only way Alabama was going to make it into this bracket is if SMU beat Clemson, and they didn't.
Right. I just think that That would have been a little bit more interesting of a game, which, like you said, people are probably going to thrash me for that. But that's fine. I just think that it would have, you got to, I guess, make it mean something. Like you said, yes, they played for the first round bye, but I think it would have been, honestly, it didn't really matter because one way or another, they both were going.
So let's kind of hit on some of the conference championship games that happened. I know we already talked about Texas and Georgia, Arizona State and Iowa State.
Yeah,
Their
Arizona
running back
State's, yeah,
Scatterboo,
yeah, he's legit.
he
Yeah,
is a monster.
yeah,
I mean, man,
because he came out and said like he thinks he deserves the Heisman. He said that he's the best running back in the nation, and I'm gonna have to pump the brakes on that a little bit. But he's got a strong argument. I mean, I'll give it to him. I think his argument is, look at who they've played.
that's true. I agree.
Like they have played some pretty good teams, and he run all over Iowa State. They couldn't stop him to save their life. They blew them out. So, they get a first round bye too. So that could be huge, especially depending on what happens.
That is very big because now they get the game plan for either
Clemson or
Texas.
So I think that's the best thing about the first round bye. Like we touched on with Georgia, Carson Beck got hurt. So now
that's perfect for them.
If you got to lean on Stockton, he's got a whole month to prepare for that Georgia is in the perfect spot.
Yeah.
Because either way, I think there would be Notre Dame or Indiana. That's just my personal preference.
Honestly, I feel like with Carson Beck being hurt, go ahead and give Gunnar Stockton all the 1 reps that you can.
Oh yeah, you got to.
Because when Carson Beck comes back, if he goes out there and he's struggling, you know for a fact he's got somebody that's ready to go.
He's ready to go.
Now, another game, I'm sorry to cut you off. Another game that kind of surprised me was Oregon and Penn State.
Yeah, that was a high-scoring game.
Game really turned into pretty much a shootout.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I think – I wasn't really expecting that just because of the way Ohio State's defense kind of shut Penn State down. And there for a minute, I thought Oregon was going to run away with it. But Penn State fought back. I mean, but like you said, they were fighting for this bye. And they kind of
honestly
fell short. Now, they are in a good bracket now. But when it comes to, say they beat SMU.
Yeah.
They got to go face, what we think is the Heisman Trophy winning running back in Ashton Jeanty. And nobody has really stopped him yet. I will say he did get contained when they played. Who did they play in their conference? UNLV. They were kind of shutting him down for the most part till right before halftime.
He
broke off that 75-yard run.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of went downhill from there.
Now, in the that little middle part of the bracket with Oregon, you got Tennessee and Ohio State. Now, I think
that game could go either way. I think Ohio State's really going to struggle against Tennessee just because, I mean, they probably have one of the best defenses in the SEC. Tennessee does, in my opinion. And look, Ohio State couldn't even beat Michigan.
Yeah, and Michigan, they really relied on their defense. And Tennessee's relied on their defense to win a lot of their games this season. So I think that's going to be –
it's probably going to be about the same thing. Ohio State's just – they got to score. They just got to come out fast.
So would you rather see Tennessee and Oregon or Ohio State and Oregon? Rematch or SEC Big Ten matchup?
I'd like to see Tennessee. Ohio State had their shot. They just couldn't beat them. I mean, a lot of people would probably like to see a rematch just because of how the game ended. If there would have been 30 more seconds on the clock, they would have tied that game. Potentially. He had to still kick the field goal. No, it was a field goal to win.
Yeah.
30 more seconds on the clock. They could have beat Oregon. We could have having a totally different conversation here.
I know.
Personally, I think either way. I don't know. The only thing that worries me about Tennessee is their offense. They're just
they're not a first half team.
They're run heavy for sure,
yeah.
And they're going to have to. Ohio State's going to have to stop Dylan Sampson. But if that's Tennessee's game plan, it's just to run it down their throat. Ohio State does have a pretty good defense. I'll give them that. They didn't give
Yeah,
up too much.
yeah,
They
yeah.
only got beat by 5.
Now, Oregon, in all honesty, Oregon deserves the number 1 seed. Of course, they're undefeated. They won the conference,
Yeah.
and just outside of that, in general, because obviously, I don't think their schedule was super tough by any means. They've just shown you that they can win in a shootout. They can win a close game when they're struggling.
They
They've
find
shown
ways
that,
to win, yeah.
yeah, they can win in all facets of the game. So obviously, Oregon in this entire bracket is the favorite, and for a good reason.
Yeah. I would probably say
Who's your sleeper?
out of the whole thing,
Out of the whole thing, who's your sleeper?
I'm probably going to go Arizona State. What I've seen them, I mean, now where they land is not favorable because that's 2 really good defenses. So
yeah, that is tough.
that's going to be a tough first game, no matter who they play, because Texas's defense is pretty solid, and Clemson has obviously a pretty good defense because they beat SMU, and SMU had a pretty good offense.
Yeah,
Clemson kind of overwhelmed them a little bit at first.
they battled back though.
They battled back.
They made it a game. They definitely made it a game. I think if it was a rematch, I think SMU would probably be. They might be the ones that come out on top. Maybe not. Who knows? But my sleeper, I think you already know who it is. Take a guess.
Is it Boise?
Of course it is.
I think
mean, you've got to show me that you can load the box. And
they're in a favorable matchup too because I don't know if either one of them can stop the run. I don't know if Clemson. Did Clemson run it on SMU? I don't really know. I can't really remember.
no, I think Clemson was torching them through the air. In all honesty, I think that one of their receivers had like 7, 8 catches, maybe for like, I don't know, maybe
the biggest thing for either one of them teams, if you're SMU or Penn State, the game plan is simple.
Yeah, stop GT, you probably gonna win.
But everybody's tried that now. Yes, you can make an argument that yes, they haven't played anybody. But the way I look at it is they played Oregon, and that man had 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Oregon kicked a game-winning field goal to beat them.
But this is the best opportunity to see if the teams who play weaker schedules are really legit. Like Notre Dame, like if they convincingly beat Indiana.
See, I think this first year, this first bracket is going to kind of be
it's going to set the precedent.
It's going to really make the committee look at, okay, did we make a mistake? Say Penn State blows SMU. They beat them 45-10 or something ridiculous, 35-7. You know, did we make a mistake by putting SMU in here when we could have put Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Miami, a team like that?
I'm sorry, Miami. Look, to all Miami fans out there, and I know a few of y'all personally. Frauds.
It's the defense.
Y'all frauds. Offensively, y'all look like, and I probably sound like a broken record saying it, carbon copy of LSU.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
From last season.
It's tough. I can speak from experience, especially from a bad defense. You know, we had Jaden Daniels obviously won the Heisman Trophy, and you know that was a championship level offense. I think me and you probably could have run all over that defense. Yeah. Miami's, it's hard to say, is it the defense or is it just how electric that offense is that you're right back on the field in 3 plays?
I think it's
both.
It's both, because obviously, you know, when your defense is already struggling, if y'all can't like put, and you can't really fault them for having explosive plays, which puts the defense right back on the field. It's like a double-edged sword. It's good, but at the same time, your defense is already struggling, is having to go right back on the field because y'all scored in 2 plays.
Yeah. Out of this bracket, who do you think doesn't stand a chance? But give me 3 teams that you just think doesn't stand a chance. Like, for instance, do you think...
I think Indiana's one of them.
I think that game is going to be pretty good.
I'd probably say Indiana and...
I would say, personally, I think the SMU Penn State game, I think that's going to be pretty good. I just think Penn State's going to be a little bit too much for SMU, considering how they hung in there with Oregon, I think that Penn Station is going to be a little bit too much for SMU. That might be saying a lot. I think Ohio State's going to struggle. I think Tennessee will beat them just because of defense. They couldn't even move the ball in Michigan. And sorry, Michigan fans, but they were just terrible. They got beat by a third string quarterback. So imagine what Tennessee's fixing to do to them.
Y'all lost to a walk-on quarterback.
So, I mean, I don't think Ohio State's going to beat Tennessee. Now, this Texas Clemson game, I think that could be really good. I think the biggest thing with Texas, and they touched on it earlier on SportsCenter, do you roll with Quinn Ewers?
I would.
If he struggles, do you put Arch Manning in?
Honestly, I'm surprised Sarkisian didn't make the switch.
I think and here's the reason why I think he didn't. I think it's hard to do that when you really don't know what Arch Manning can do. What if here's the way I look at it. Arch Manning is your future, and God forbid he go out there and, tear his Achilles or something, because Quinn Ewers is going pro.
Well, look,
I would imagine.
This is what I know. I know Georgia struggles against mobile quarterbacks.
And it was the game that they played against Texas A&M when he broke off that run. Because Arch Manning, I didn't know he was big. He's a big dude.
He's big and he's a big dude. He's fast. He's underrated.
On that fourth down when he broke out that counter run and scored that touchdown, I was like, this guy's going to be a problem.
Man,
he's going to be a big problem.
Man, like I said, I was surprised that, and obviously it's hard to say that because in the Texas Georgia game,
my argument is it the NIL? Is it the money? Is it the money and the what's the other word I'm looking for? I don't know what I'm looking for there. But is it the money and like everything that comes with Quinn Ewers that you just don't want to answer that question? Why'd you bench Quinn Ewers? Why'd you put him on the bench? Now
look, let me look. One thing I know is
it's a tough conversation.
Forget the money. If as a coach, if your goal for you and your team, and obviously your team's going to,
I would have put in. As soon as we went into overtime, I would have put him in there. You're on the 25. Let him run. Just let him, because Quinn. Okay, I'm not trying to take anything away from Quinn Ewers. He
gave him a snap. He gave him a snap at I think in that first possession.
Here's Quinn Ewers' problem, and this is just my opinion. He's either really good or he's bad. There's no in between for Quinn Ewers. Either he plays bad and they got to rely on the defense and the run game, or he's lights out.
Same thing for Carson Beck.
Yeah, and I think Texas just wasn't quite ready, which obviously, nobody's ready for a backup quarterback because, he hadn't played all year. He played one snap in the Georgia Tech game when Carson Beck got hurt, and they scored a touchdown with Stockton too, with Carson Beck on the bench. So
Texas had an opportunity to win the game.
Personally, if I would have been Texas, I would have just went for it in overtime. I wouldn't have kicked the field goal because Georgia was obviously they were going to go for it. That's just what Kirby Smart would have done. And I think like we said, either way, it didn't matter. So I think Texas should just went for it. Personally, why not? Did that game? Yeah, it went into overtime, didn't it?
Yeah, it went into overtime.
That's what I thought. I was about to say, wait a minute. But yeah, I would have put Arch Manning in. You're on the 25. I mean, what if he breaks off a run and scores a touchdown? You're putting all that pressure on Georgia to score.
So, and I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure I said it already. The way we ramble sometimes, I tend to forget what I've already said or did not say. But looking at this bracket, I think Georgia has the easiest path to the national championship.
Oh, for sure. They're going to beat. So let's just go over the bracket. I don't know if we did that, but we'll do that right now. So if we did it the first time, we're going to do it again. So Indiana, Notre Dame.
I'd probably say Notre Dame wins in that first round matchup because Indiana has to go there. Obviously, home field advantage is going to play a factor in the first round.
Oh, for sure. That's big.
With a neutral field site, Notre Dame against SEC teams has not fared well in the playoffs, championships, whatever it might be. They always, and I'm sorry to bag on y'all, Notre Dame fans, Notre Dame team, whoever you are as a whole.
Do you know where they're at? Where's Georgia playing? Do you know?
Uh,
Is it the Fiesta Bowl?
it's one of those bowls, wherever it is. Regardless, they're
It's
not.
neutral, yeah.
Yeah, it's neutral. So whoever's
Yeah, I think the biggest game here is going to be two teams. But yeah, before we get into that, I'm gonna pick Notre Dame too, just because of the way I've seen Indiana play against Ohio State. I think Notre Dame's gonna have that same game plan.
yeah.
I
And
feel like they're gonna have to. I feel like they might overwhelm Indiana just a tad because Notre Dame, although Notre Dame, we haven't really seen them play anybody. They do have a mobile quarterback.
which Georgia struggles with.
Would I'm talking about Indiana?
Oh, my bad.
So they do have a mobile quarterback. They do have a pretty good run game, and I think Notre Dame has a pretty good defense. Which, like we broken record, but we haven't seen them play anybody. So I think that game, but like you said, home field advantage here matters, and it really is going to matter in this Penn State SMU game because SMU has to travel to Penn State, and it's cold, and every time you see, teams that don't really play in the cold, when they come to play in the cold, they struggle.
Yeah, that's
That
a
kind
common
of
thing.
touches to Tennessee a little bit, which it does get cold in Tennessee, but I think it's snowing in Ohio right now. So, but if I had to pick one, I think I'm going to have to stick to what I said earlier. I think Penn State would just be a little. I think they'd be just like Clemson. There's going to be a little bit too much.
I don't. I think I might roll with the SMU in that game though, because they have an electric offense. Especially, I mean, their run game is really good. I mean,
I
with
think Penn State's just going to be a little bit too much.
I, I
I
don't
think
know.
it's
I
going to be
think
like Clemson. I think it's going to be close.
see,
Honestly, it might be.
I was gonna say I think that Clemson loss is gonna prepare them for that Penn State game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like Clemson came out and was the much more physical
Well,
football team.
yeah, I think the first round, I think you're going to see a lot of going for it on fourth. I mean, this is for all the marbles now. So, I mean, there's really nothing to lose here. I mean, I would expect.
I think in the future, and no disrespect to how this bracket is set up because I think it's pretty dope. In the future, I think the first round games should be bowl games too. I mean, I think it's only fair. You're telling me that the first round, the teams have to travel to another team stadium,
Oh,
play
you
in
think they
a.
should be neutral?
It should be neutral. I mean, make it fair.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we already got like 5 million other bowl games that y'all added in. You might as well just throw four
So
more
it's
bowl
so
games
it's
in
so it's
here. So
neutral. I
it's
guess
neutral. It's fair.
yeah, because that's a lot to ask from Tennessee to have to travel to Ohio. I guess I could see that. That would make sense. Yeah, I didn't think about that because
Yeah,
now,
like I said, don't get me wrong. It's a cool concept because the first round you're not really given anything. You have to go and earn your spot to the next round, but at least make it a neutral site because the home field advantage is clearly going to play a factor in every single first round game.
oh
Tennessee
yeah,
is going to travel to a crazy environment, which is Ohio State, one of the toughest places in the country to play.
yeah,
Clemson has to go to Texas, and they're already throwing water bottles on the field at the refs and the
yeah.
players, so they got to deal with that.
Indiana has to go to Notre Dame where it's 10 degrees, and SMU has to do the same thing to Penn State. So yeah, that makes sense. Um, but yeah, so who do you have winning? So do you have Ohio State beating Tennessee?
I think I'm gonna continue to stick with Tennessee in this one just because I really like the look of their defense. I mean, they held some really good offenses in, and again, no disrespect to any conference out there, but and y'all can script it how you want it, say what you want to say. The SEC is indeed.
I'm gonna have to agree just because of the way they played against Michigan, which we say it's a different week, but like you said, they do have home field, so it's tough. I think I'm gonna lean Ohio State here. I forgot about the home field advantage thing, so that's gonna slightly lean me Ohio State there, just because like you said, Ohio State's a tough place to play. It's going to be cold, and Tennessee tends to be a little sluggish. Now, Ohio State cannot struggle because Tennessee has a really good defense and a really good running back in Dylan Sampson. He has like just as many touchdowns as Genty. So,
Yeah. But I mean, look, for anybody that wants to argue, two of the best teams in the Big 12, the top two teams in the Big 12, like every year just about, came to the SEC. If that doesn't tell you
everything you need to know. Yeah.
everything you need to know, then you clearly, you're mental.
Now, this Clemson Texas game, I think this is going to go either way.
Yeah, it could. I think
I think I'm going to have to go Clemson here. And the reason I'm going to have to go them is they've been in this spotlight before, and I think Dabo is going to do everything he can to win. They're kind of on a roll right now. They've played some really good teams. They've been I just haven't seen Texas fight back and win.
You know their win-loss against the SEC this season is 0-2, right?
I know. But what I'm saying is they found a way to come back. And like they've had some really hard-fought games. And in Texas just really it depends. Quinn Ewers is the key factor to this game.
Yeah, of course.
If he plays bad, Texas is in trouble.
Texas has the benefit of having home field advantage. That's going to be the biggest thing. I think that's where Clemson is going to struggle. It's going to be a crazy environment.
Yeah, Texas, I see what you're saying. Yeah, this should have been neutral site.
Texas plays great football. Anybody's going to play great football at their home field, of course, because you got the crowd with you.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who you bring to the field. Your home
because the ticket sales are going to be leaned more towards Texas than they are going to. But that's not a big. Exactly. But that's not as big as from going to like Tennessee to Ohio. That's a big jump. I mean, Clemson and Texas they're pretty far apart, but yeah, the home field advantage. I didn't think about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think. Look, Clemson is traveling from South Carolina all the way
to Texas,
down to about the middle of the map in Texas, towards the bottom. All right, you got another Texas team traveling all the way up north to Penn State.
Yep. Tennessee going up north to Ohio, and Indiana coming down, right? Yeah.
Like, just imagine if Clemson beats Texas. Then they got to – well, it's neutral site. Never mind. I was going to say they got to travel to Arizona State. But
they'll have to travel to wherever they are. But, yeah, it's neutral.
It's neutral. So I forgot everything after the first round is committee, look, just – do us a favor, make the first round bowl games.
I didn't think about that. That's a really good idea.
Y'all added in all these
stupid bowls,
really Quest bowls and Pop Tarts bowls and all these other throwaway bowl games because y'all saved the premier bowl games for the playoffs. Just add 4 more, throw some random names on.
Because this isn't them aren't even bowl games. They're just regular games.
Yeah, they're just regular games to play into the quarterfinals. I mean, like I said, make them neutral site.
But I guess you can make an argument that they did win something.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it though,
if any game should have been a home game, it should have been this.
No,
I think that would have made more sense.
If we're going to call this the playoffs,
yeah, like NFL, I guess you get home field advantage.
Which is different because obviously NFL you're going to play at whoever's
so I
field.
guess that's how they're looking at it.
College wise, just make the whole thing neutral. I mean, if you want clarity for if they made the right decision or not, make the first round games neutral.
Yeah, neutral sites. Because like you said, you can argue. Well,
if let's say Clemson loses to Texas,
yeah.
Oh well, Texas was at home. That's going to be the argument.
Yeah.
Then like I said,
because a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people play better at home. You don't have to go anywhere. You have your home crowd. You have your band. Obviously, it's going to be louder than the opposing team. You have your fans. They didn't have to travel. So, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I didn't think about that. That's a good way to look at it. I didn't think about that.
You remember what I told you before when they first announced that we're going to 12 teams? I told you that there was always going to be speculation and controversy.
Yeah.
Because when the 12-team bracket came out, you had Bama fans, Miami fans, Ole Miss fans, South Carolina fans trying to make an argument on why they should have been there. And, I mean, just in my personal opinion, I think this bracket is exactly how it should be.
Yeah.
Committee, just Please.
If you're South Carolina fans, it's the three losses. You lost LSU in a tough game where Lenore Sellers got hurt. You fumbled a game winning drive against Alabama. Lenore Sellers fumbled. So it's honestly, if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt in that LSU game, I'll be honest, we probably would have. It would have been a way different outcome. He doesn't fumble that snap against Alabama. They only won by 2.
Honestly, well, if you think about it
Them
like
getting
this,
blowed out by Ole Miss, that didn't really change anything.
if you think about it like this, I think a two-loss South Carolina team with an Alabama loss and an Ole Miss loss and a win against LSU, they'd be in over
Oh,
SMU.
for sure, I think so. The same thing goes for Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss, yep.
If they would have beat Kentucky, they lost to LSU in overtime, and they beat Georgia, so they have that, and then they lost to Florida. That's not the end of the world. That was the last game.
They lost too many games on the back end.
It's the 3 losses. I'm sorry. It's as strong as the SEC is.
The 3 losses hurt.
It's that I don't think that they. You would have, like I said, it's like I said earlier. If Alabama would have lost to Texas instead of Oklahoma, I personally think they'd still be in here, even with 3 losses, because you got to think they lost to Tennessee.
No,
they're in here. Then they lost to Vandy, which okay, they got in a shootout with Vandy, which okay, you can argue that Vandy played with Texas.
Yeah,
Vandy played with a bunch of teams, so you could argue Vandy's a mid-level team. It's that loss to Oklahoma on the road. You scored 3 points. It's that. Now, if they would have done that against Texas and or I don't know, another ranked team,
they wouldn't have got in over SMU.
But it's like they're saying now that you've got to go reevaluate your schedule. You're going to have to get rid of those Mercers and those New Mexico States and the UT Chattanoogas and the Martins and the Wooffords, and you're going to have to get rid of them because you have to be able to make a case that say they had 3 losses, and then all of a sudden the last game you beat number 6 Ohio State. Well, you have a case that you can make the playoffs, but it's those unranked non-conference, high school teams, as you want to call them, that it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like I'm taking shots at Miami, but y'all just didn't deserve to be there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the defense. It's tough, and they have an argument, but it's like I said, and as tough as a pill as it might be to swallow, this is money. Do you really want to see? I'm not saying Miami's not going to score, but Miami would probably be. Where would they be at? They'd probably be
somewhere. They'd probably be like 11, or if Clemson didn't win, they'd probably be sitting.
So they'd have to. So they'd be playing Texas. They're not beating Texas.
They wouldn't beat Penn State either.
I don't think they'd beat anybody in here. They might be able to hang in with SMU and Indiana, maybe.
Honestly, I'm really not trying to. Anybody who's a real Miami fan should know that y'all didn't need to be.
It's
there.
Like I said, it's a money aspect, and it's as hard as it is to say. You got to put the best team in here.
Their only real shot was winning the conference.
I think, and here's the argument that you just have to sit down. Look what happened a couple years ago when Georgia played TCU. Did TCU deserve to be in there? You could argue that. They played they beat Texas, and then all of a sudden they come to play Georgia and scored 3 points, and Georgia scored 70.
Oh, well, you mean Michigan? They beat Michigan.
They beat Michigan.
Yeah, they beat Michigan that year, like barely.
Yeah, Georgia beat Texas. So you don't want to put somebody in here that potentially could get blowed out, and it's a waste of a spot because got their losses hurt them because it's where they struggled. They struggled against Georgia Tech. Miami just couldn't make mistakes. The one mistake, they're beat because they just can't stop anybody. And there's no way would beat Texas. There's no way they beat Clemson. They would not beat Tennessee. They would not beat like I said, the only two teams,
I don't
maybe
know.
three.
I say two. It's Indiana and Notre Dame because those are the only other teams I
Yeah,
know
because
who would really.
SMU they got a pretty good defense,
Yeah,
but Indiana's got a pretty good. I don't know if they beat anybody, but maybe I see why people are mad because this was supposed to give other teams a chance.
I mean, it technically did.
I think it's more along the lines of what else would they have to do, but it was losing. It's just you just can't.
You got to win your games.
It's the defense. That's I mean we've said it 100 times, but
Because I mean, you got a group of five with Boise State from the Mountain West. You got Arizona State up here, the
I
four
think a
seed.
lot of people's arguments is Boise being at number 3. And I
See,
can kind of get behind that a little bit because
I'll tell you what I saw. I saw a lot of people telling the committee like just run the 1 through 12 off of the AP poll, rank them as they are in the AP poll, maybe shift it a little bit differently instead of doing this where other teams get left out. Because I mean,
yeah,
if you go and look at the rankings in the AP poll, Alabama would have been sitting at like number 11.
yeah.
But like I said, I'm not opposed to this
I think
setup.
it's going to change. I think after this year it'll
It'll
probably
change.
change
It'll change. They'll probably change a lot of things going into the set. You
because
got to
all
think
it's
this
going to
is.
take, and it's like we said, all it's going to take is for Indiana it's going to be a few games. It's Penn State, SMU, and Indiana, Notre Dame. I think the other two games they'll be okay because obviously those are high level schools. If Penn State beats SMU or vice versa, if they blow out one another, and same goes for Indiana and Notre Dame, if they blow out one another, then they're really going to be like, okay, well, we made a mistake. We should have put a better team in there, but it's a trial. This is the first year, so.
Yep, everything's not going to be perfect on the first shot. So,
But yeah, we'll touch. If we got 2 weeks before the first round, then we'll jump into the quarterfinals, and then those are going to be some really good games, and then we'll have the semis and the national championship. So who knows? We may see.
you can see Boise State and Arizona State in the national championship.
Wouldn't that be crazy? You could. It's the only thing I will say is
I would love to. I would
the
love to
only
see.
thing that I will say is catching that first bye is sometimes you can get rusty and you're kind of coming off. So, for instance, Arizona State is coming off of a huge win, blew out Iowa State, blew them completely out, had probably one of the best games they've had all season. Now you got to wait to play. I mean, they're not going to play for almost a month. So that's a long time, but that gives you time. But like you said, that's an advantage because now you can game plan for Clemson and or Texas,
Yep.
where Texas is only going to have say they win. What if they get banged up? What if Quinn Ewers or whoever gets hurt? Then you're so I wonder how that will. At this point, it doesn't matter. The bracket's already set.
Yeah.
So I wonder. Well, obviously, we won't even wonder that because obviously, if Texas wins and Quinn Ewers gets hurt, they're obviously going to advance. But say, for instance, Quinn Ewers would have got. Well, let's not say Quinn Ewers because Texas was going to go regardless. Let's say SMU's quarterback got hurt. Think they would have put him in?
No.
You think they'd have kept Alabama in there? I
Yes.
think that's probably the best.
It would have
That's
been the
probably
same
the
thing.
best. Well, if Quinn Ewers would have got hurt, you think Texas would have got in there, or you think they would have pushed him out?
No, they would have still been in there.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean they have a capable backup. That's the biggest difference. Like if SMU, let's say their quarterback gets hurt, completely different football team,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that's something that you can tell because they made the switch to him, and they've been rolling ever since they switched to the quarterback that they have now, Kevin Jennings.
I think like we said, yeah. I think that we're gonna see some controversy, especially teams not making it, and that was the whole point of this. But at the same time, you just it's the it kind of forces you to I the main thing I like about this is that you're not going to see you're kind of giving these players something to play for now. You're not going to see obviously Quinn Ewers ain't going to opt out of the first round. So if they
Yeah,
would have lost and went to a bowl game, he ain't going to play in
of
that.
course.
I'm
Not.
sorry.
You're gonna see that's a trend you're seeing now because all these throwaway bowl games. A lot of players don't really care. I mean, they're
Yeah.
already, especially nowadays too with NIL, they're opting out. They're getting ready to go to the next level. A lot
Yeah.
of them are.
Well, yeah, it's I think that's a good thing too and it's as they've said, it's obviously going to expand. It's going to get bigger. I would run this a few times. I'd run this for a couple years just to see how it works. You don't want it to be too much.
Of course.
I don't think you want it to be like 25 teams.
I think if you go to 18, I think 18 is like a max.
I think even that's too many. That's a lot of games.
Yeah,
Cuz you got to think that's going to push into that's a lot of games. That's a
it
lot of
is.
games.
But they said it could get that high. Well, I think they said the next one they're going to look at is like 14.
Because what if now this is a what if, but what if your agent came to you and was like, look, like you're banged up and it might be in your best interest not to play in these. Like you're potentially, let's just say for a fact.
If you're a star player, you're going to play.
Let me put it this way. If you are in the same situation, say you were in the same situation as Caleb Williams, obviously people knew he was going to be the first round pick. And your agent, there's 18 teams, and say, for instance, you're in the back half of the playoffs, and your agent comes to you and is like, "Look, man, you're banged up. Look, you're going to be the first round pick.
You're
It's simple. It's set in stone.
you're going
It's
to play. I'm going to tell you why. Because NFL teams are going to look at whether or not you quit on your team in the playoffs.
I seen that debate the other day. I know we're rambling. I seen that debate the other day that NFL teams are looking at that. Are you? They want to see you battle through injuries and stuff like that. Now I get it, depending on the circumstances of how bad you're really hurt.
Would you do it?
Would I do what?
Would you do it? Same scenario you just said. Would you do it?
I would think about it.
I wouldn't. I'd be playing.
I
I'm
mean,
not.
it would be hard. Okay, it would be a hard decision, but okay, if it would be different. I know this probably wouldn't happen. It might happen. I don't know. Not a professional athlete. If an NFL team called me and said, "Okay, we have the number one pick, and we are going to take you number one, no matter what happens." Yeah, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd play. No, I don't think so.
Oh my. Nah. I would.
And it's the fact that as selfish as it sounds, it would be really hard. Now, yeah, because I don't know, that'd be tough because obviously then you're giving up on your team and then they're going to get blown out. But I don't know, it would be tough because what if you did get hurt? I mean, I know it's football, and what if we can sit here and go in circles. I think you would have to consider it if it was guaranteed, like you were going to be guaranteed, like you signed, like you could kind of like NIL, you could sign a contract with whoever it was. We're going to take you number one overall pick. I think it'd be tough. It'd be a tough decision.
I'm not quitting on my team. That's
It
as a college athlete, and you build a camaraderie with a group of people
it
to.
would yeah, I think it would be tough to leave your team, and especially in that situation. I don't think anybody would do it. Now, would I be surprised if somebody did it? Absolutely not, just because of the age of football that
Now,
we're
don't
in.
get me wrong. If somebody's like, "I'm gonna wire you $1 billion if you throw a pick on the game-winning drive," I'd do that in a heartbeat. I mean, that's $1 billion.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think anybody would do that, but I mean, I will. You'd probably. I don't think it'd be that much money, but you'd probably be surprised. But yeah, I be surprised if somebody opted out. Yes, just because of. I mean, at that point, why would you do that? So Say, for instance, somebody did. Say, for instance, next week, I don't know, give me a team.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Say, for instance, they had a really good quarterback. And let's say Clemson, they're a little bit higher. Say Cade Klubnik opted out and
Okay.
is going to go to the NFL.
Okay.
Say next week, do you think that they would change the bracket? Or they
No,
just let it ride?
it's already said. You can't change it.
I didn't know if they could change it.
Nah, this is the final. Like this is done, set, signed, sealed, delivered, whatever. There's no
I
changing it.
don't see anybody doing that. That would obviously cause a lot of controversy. Your house would probably get burned down if they figured out where you lived. You'd probably get stabbed or killed. There ain't no telling. People are crazy, so there's no telling what would happen. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the bracket. I know we rambled. Um,
Y'all should come to expect that when it comes to. I mean, because with this kind of thing, though, in all honesty, it leaves a lot of room to ramble because it's not like you're sticking to one topic. Everything we talked about was pretty much.
I think you touched on it perfectly. Georgia's got a lot to figure out because hear me out. What personally, I think if Notre Dame beats Indiana, if Carson, I think you roll with Stockton. Just try it.
If Carson Beck is ready to go, you play him.
I know.
But this is why I said you give Gunnar Stockton as many number one reps as you can.
I think you.
Because if Beck comes
It,
out there and struggles like how he's been doing off and on this season,
I think you could roll. I like you said. They're obviously they're going to roll with Carson Beck. He's their guy. You know, he's probably. I think you have to just for the NIL money standpoint. Like he's the face of your team. But like you said, if he struggles or he's not 100%, you could roll Stockton and maybe put Beck on the bench for the semifinals if he's not 100% healthy. Because either way, I think Georgia, like I said earlier, I think Georgia would beat either one of them with Stockton no matter. I mean, he beat Texas.
I was going to
So
say,
what difference does
in
it make?
all honesty, I
Because you got to
think
think Stockton played a whole half.
100% healthy or not, I think you. Okay, let's do this scenario. If he's 100% healthy, you play him. If he struggles, keep him on a short leash. Pull him if you know he can't win you the game. You know you got a guy who can come in
Yeah.
and make the plays you need him to make.
Yeah, I mean, he did beat.
If he's not 100% healthy, I think we could see like a Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe kind of situation where he's going to come in.
I think it's going to go same thing for Texas. If they start struggling, I would not be surprised. If I doubt they do it. I don't think. I mean, he's had the opportunity to do it, and he hasn't done it. He did it in the Georgia game, but then he put Quinn Ewers right back in there. I just don't think Arch Manning was ready for that.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're playing Georgia, which is a very good team. So yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if you see a lot of stuff going in this first round. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for me too. I mean, so obviously we got a nice little back to back for y'all, so we can get a nice little intro to our our live recording stuff. So this pretty much wraps it up for the final playoff bracket. So I mean, we're looking forward to this. Is going to be a very interesting playoffs, basically. So as always, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We still got our goal working towards 3K for the by the end of the year for TikTok. We're still working towards 100 subscribers for YouTube. So we're gonna keep on pushing for it, and we'll catch y'all in the next episode.